We have had numbers coming through from Statistics South Africa showing unemployment increasing by 0.3 percentage points to 27.5% in the third quarter of this year. Now, of course, to be able to create the jobs that are required, we need entrepreneurs. And in the studio, I'm also bringing you Michael Jordaan. I don't need to say he's the ex-CEO of FNB because he's now the CEO of Bank Zero. Bank Zero, a 45% black-owned, app-driven bank, has announced its integration with the national payment system here in South Africa. It was granted that license, remember, in September, and he is here to talk about that. Okay, so let's begin, first of all, the discussion about the unemployment rate. Sanisha, sorry, I forgot to introduce you. Sanisha Pakrisami, economist at Momentum Investments. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Let's talk about that small increase, 0.3 percentage points. But it's the other higher number, isn't it, that we're more worried about, 27% that can't find work in South Africa. Was that number worse than you expected?
Godfrey, I think it's to be expected. We had a very poor first half of the year in terms of growth, 2 quarters of consecutive negative growth. So as a result, I think that employment will take some time to come through.
And the numbers that we saw coming through today, just sum up for us, if you will, where there was a deterioration as well as perhaps that small increase, where that came from.
Sure. So it was the usual suspects. We had manufacturing losing jobs, mining sector also losing jobs.
Yeah.
And we know that the mining charter only really came through quite recently, the revision to the 3rd mining charter.
Yeah.
Agriculture also lost 1,000 jobs, as to be expected with the uncertainty around land reform. Where we did see some increases was on financial services, over 100,000 jobs created there.
Right.
We also saw some increases coming through on the trade side and construction.
Yeah, it looks like they are preparing for Michael Jordaan's bank right on the financial services side. I just wanted to put in one more question before we come to Michael. These numbers are for the 3rd quarter. Should that make us worry about the economic performance of the country in the 3rd quarter, given the first 2 quarters that we saw where we had the recession?
So if we look at the growth numbers, I think we are likely to see an increase in growth. The high-frequency data points to around 2% increase in quarter-on-quarter terms.
Yeah.
In terms of the jobs itself, this will take some time to come through. We've only just had the jobs summit, and some reasonable expectations to come out from there means a mild improvement in growth over the next couple of quarters. And that number is still a net number.
Yeah.
So there were still 92,000 jobs that were created, although the number of jobs that were lost were, of course, greater.
Yeah. Michael, before you came in, I was talking to the gentleman from IG, Martin Harris, and we were talking about the fact that corporates are sitting on $1 trillion. This is the number that we have had. I don't know what number you have had of cash on the balance sheets because they can't find opportunities to invest it in the broader economy. Is it difficult to create jobs in this economy, do you think?
You know, the missing ingredient is probably confidence. And confidence is actually the cheapest form of stimulus. So if we can create the right environment where businesses believe that there will be economic growth, that institutions will be governed effectively, and where entrepreneurs feel that they can take the risks, it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The economy will grow. Now, I see myself in that positive group. I see the glass as half full.
Right.
I see so many opportunities in South Africa exactly because we have problems.
Yeah.
And that would be my broader message out there to people is, yes, you can point fingers and you can validly criticize, but you know, get out there and do something, solve a problem, create a business around it.
You are not sitting on the fence. You are coming in at this particular time where we're saying this $1 trillion is sitting on company balance sheets. What are you seeing that is encouraging you to come in where others are saying, let's wait and see?
You know, if you read all the headlines on newspapers, you can get very, very depressed. What I try and surround myself with are people who have energy.
Are you saying they are wrong?
I think they're sometimes done to sell newspapers. I mean, that's the business model, and they fulfill an important role. But underlying, there are very many good South Africans that are working very hard to make this country better. And I like to surround myself with those type of people. That gives me more energy, and they are creating real solutions out there. So I am very encouraged by a thriving ecosystem of startups that I see.
Okay, so what do you do with Bank Zero? You have your license. You have been integrated, we heard, into the payment systems of the sub. What does that mean? Can I wake up tomorrow and open an account, and do you walk into Bank Zero?
No, not yet. And I just need to make a small correction. You introduced me earlier as the CEO. I am indeed the founder, but with my partner Yatina, she is the CEO, and I chair Bank Zero. Small correction.
Correct.
No, we're not ready for the public yet. We have now started our testing. So it's a small group of staff that are testing end to end.
Right.
So it's the app all the way back to the banking system, making sure that all the transactions work out perfectly, that there's disaster recovery, etc.
Right.
We hope to launch in mid-2019.
Okay.
We will obviously then reveal more, but we really hope to make quite an impact and to bring some relief, not just to individuals, but also businesses.
Yeah. Remind us again, what are you doing different?
So it's an app-based bank. It's also an app-only bank. You'll have an app and a credit card. And therefore, we were forced to redesign the entire bank without providing for people having to go into a branch or having to phone a contact center.
Yeah.
Absolutely everything you want to do with banking, you will do on your phone, just like you can do it with Google or Facebook or Instagram.
Sure.
It's a mobile phone-centric bank.
Yeah.
Obviously, we want to be very competitive in terms of fees. We think that banking fees are too high in South Africa.
Yeah.
And we want to bring, certainly, and particularly we feel the business segment has been neglected there. They should not be paying that level of fees that they're paying.
Yeah.
And then finally, there are a range of innovations where we've looked at the things customers want but can't get because of the legacy systems that banks have. So we're going to be very excited to launch some innovative features that we haven't seen anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And that's a nice thing, that there's excellence coming out of Africa.
We're waiting for you. Sanisha, I know you're not a bank analyst, you are an economist, but looking at the financial sector, can we do more? Can we do with more banks? I make the point because the other time we went to Tanzania, and in one little street, I tell you, I counted 5-6 banks, and this is like just 500 meters. And then I asked afterwards, Tanzania has something like 55 banks in that economy. Here in South Africa, I don't know if we can count them on my 2 fingers. Can we do it more?
I do believe that is the case, especially as well in the retail sector. More competition is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Increasingly, we are speaking about structural reforms in order to reinvigorate growth in South Africa.
Yeah.
And one of the methods to do this, as the International Monetary Fund has pointed out, is to increase competition in the product and labor market. So by having more banks, more retailers, it ultimately brings down the cost for consumers.
Yeah. But what has prevented the system from being able to enable the existence of more banks?
Partly regulation.
Partly regulation.
So if we
it's
try and
our
reduce,
fault, it's the authorities' fault.
If we try and reduce the red tape and make it easier, barriers to entry, make these easier for more competitors to get into the market, it will enable more competition.
Yeah. You bring competition.
Yes, you hope so.
You're taking on your former employers.
Yes.
It must be...
No, that I must admit is tough, because I do feel very loyal still to the team that I had there, the opportunities that I was given, the culture that I really do believe in. But it's been 6 years, I've been away from them for 6 years. I am a banker, and I'm plying my trade.
Yeah. You had the pledges that were made at the investment summit where President Cyril Ramaphosa gathered all these big people last week. 290 billion rand is the final figure I had. $20 billion. Well, it doesn't really matter, is it? Because the rand goes all over the place. But $20 billion we'll work with was pledged at that summit. And I am just thinking, when you hear all those sums, you would think they should be, it's a demonstration of confidence in South Africa's economy. The next question is going to apply to the both of you, because I am wondering when those jobs are going to begin coming in, and when that confidence that was publicly displayed is going to come through and reflect in money going into investments and actual enterprises that create jobs for people. Can I begin with the lady and then come to you?
Please.
Thank you.
Sure, Godfrey. So I believe that we do need to get past a point where the elections matter less and we have more regulatory and political certainty in the market. I think that corporates are still lagging behind on spend on infrastructure as well as on employment, because they are worried about the environment in which they are operating.
Okay. Do you see those jobs coming through now?
So that's 92,000 worth of jobs that are being created. I think that will still take some time. So for example, we still saw the mining sector shedding jobs because we only just had the revised
Someone was
mining
making
charter.
the point, Anglo is promising 71 billion rand, but at the same time 13,000 miners are losing their jobs at Rustenburg.
Yes, so I think there are some quick wins to be achieved. They did announce at the Job Summit that they are going to be focusing on the tourism sector, for example, agriculture, agro-processing. So these are all sectors that are quite labor intensive. So those are sort of the quick wins, and then longer term we need to fix things like education and upskilling, and that's going to take some time.
Absolutely. How important was it for the president to convene that summit and then come up with those figures that he got there?
I think it was crucially important. As a businessman, I cannot envisage that this would have happened under the previous regime. So it is a complete change of tide and complete change of sentiment. Now, it's possible to say some of those would have happened in any event, and is it really going to happen, and so on.
Yeah.
But I really, 2 years ago, you wouldn't have had the top leaders in business making these pledges.
Yeah.
They're very public pledges. Obviously, there'll be a lag, but I do think I tend to agree that in 2019 we'll see the tide turn. I would just like to make another point about unemployment, and that is the core reason there isn't just the economy, it's the lack of appropriate skills, and that is a function of our education system in South Africa.
Right.
There are, in fact, positions open in many of these corporates, vacancies, but they're not finding the appropriate skills. You know, they want, let's say, programmers, software developers, but we are just not producing enough of them. So it's also important to look at kind of what's really causing this, and it's an inadequate education system.
Absolutely. I've just been given a question over in my earpiece here to you, Michael, about the kind of clientele that you expect to see walking through, should I say, the door of Bank Zero?
Tapping on the icon of the app.
Walking through onto
so
the app.
It's anyone with a smartphone. Individuals and businesses. Smartphones sales are still on the increase in South Africa and in the rest of the world and in Africa. The prices are coming down. You can now find a really, really good smartphone for as little as 1,500 Rand. It's become far more accessible. Data prices are also coming down, not fast enough, but they're falling. So anyone who has a smartphone will be able to use the services of Bank Zero. We're going to make it very intuitive and easy, yet very safe. You know, if you had to redesign a bank from scratch, you would do it on a phone. That's exactly right. You probably wouldn't think of putting, you know, physical outlets in every mall. You would just do it on a phone, and that's what we've done.
And in terms of the costs, I think it's one big focus for many people to see what you're going to do around costs.
So
can I corner you on
we will reveal all when we launch, which is in 2019. But I will give you a tip that the brand name Bank Zero is a clue.
So you're going to get a loan where the interest rate is 0.
That's not going to happen,
Michael
unfortunately.
Jordaan, co-founder, chairperson of Bank Zero, thank you for coming through. Sanisha Pakrisami, economist at Momentum, thank you as well for joining us for our discussion.